All right, welcome everyone. Uh, Thank you so much for your patience. Kind of rocky start here working with our tech. We're all on the same page here. I see some hands so people can hear me. Um, and I will be presenting this evening. My name is Matthew Hendrickson. I'm a transportation planner with the District Department of Transportation. I'm going to introduce my colleagues here in a moment. But we're here to talk about U Street Northwest and a bus priority project. I am with the bus priority team. And we are hosting this for all of the ANC districts that are within this corridor. So I wanted to say a big thank you to the ANC chairs of 1B, 2B, and 2F, Sable Harris, Meg Rogensack, and Joe Florio. Thank you guys so much for spreading the word. Thank you guys so much for working with us to get this out to your communities. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss this project with you. We really look forward to the conversation tonight. We're going to give a little bit of background information, and then we want to hear from you. So I do want to do a couple of introductions on our team. We have our bus priority team. On that first slide, you saw myself, as well as the deputy project manager, who is Melanie Marino. I have my supervisor and our red team manager, who looks at a lot of different bus priority projects throughout the district, Jamie Carrington. We also have our community engagement division on with Donovan Boyd and Mignon Bowie. And of course, our IT folks. Thank you guys so much for being here and supporting this. We're going to talk through who we are as far as the bus priority program. We're going to get into what we're going to be looking at on U Street and kind of what that entails. And then we want to hear from you. And then we have a couple closeout things that we need to do to get some additional feedback. So one thing to note is that we're using WebEx. This meeting is being recorded, and we will post this in a timely manner on our project webpage, as well as on our YouTube. Have everyone muted at this time, but we are going to definitely take questions and answers at the end. So we will be able to talk to you directly. If you have that opportunity and you want to raise your hand, we'll get to you at that point, but also use the chat. Again, I'm a little unfamiliar with that, but we'll if we have that ability, we'll use it. And so, and again, the video is off for now, but we'll get to that point in that Q&A session. At the very end, I would just like the opportunity for the ANC chairs and some of the other folks to speak first, since they helped organize this, and then we'll get to all of you. So thank you guys. All right, so who are we as the bus priority program? So we are part of the district's Move DC goals to improve bus speeds and reliability. As you can see to the right, this is not just one corridor as far as U Street, but this is an entire network that we envision for the city to better connect people to places and to the places that they need to go and the places that they love. But our focus is definitely on prioritizing our buses for better access and streamlining more efficient bus operations. And what that means, you know, for our riders is that they have more access to all of the things that you need as far as getting around, whether it's trips to the grocery store, to the hospital or pharmacy, getting to and from work, getting to and from school. And it's not just about buses per se, but it's also about all of the things that you would experience on a ride. And that includes, you know, getting to and from the bus stop, making sure that the streets are safer to walk to and from, improving those bus stop facilities, making sure that our bus lanes that we introduce help reduce congestion and get people to where they need to go faster. Also, what are the tools at our disposal to be able to do that? So we'll be talking a lot about those opportunities as far as the challenges that we face to be able to move buses more quickly, and you know how we can address them. And again, U Street is one of many projects throughout the district. On this map, you see U Street highlighted. It's just less than a mile but we're also going to be kicking off a project for Florida Ave, which is a direct connection. So as you go kind of more east along that map down Florida Avenue, that will be an active project as well. So a lot of things are coming online. A lot of things have been built. And we have kind of a process and a system to be able to expand bus lanes and bus improvements throughout the district. So that's who we are as the Bus Priority Program. This is the corridor itself. Our project extents are from 16th to 9th Street Northwest. We do overlap with several other projects, including DDOT and IPMA Streetscape that overlaps 2 blocks further to the west, and including that Florida Avenue bus project that I just mentioned to the east. And right in the middle of that is kind of future development at the Reeve Center, as well as kind of other future developments. So we know that there is a lot going on within this community and this corridor. Our goals are to make sure that we're, improving bus operations, but we're also improving safety. This is also a Vision Zero Tier 1 part of the high injury network. And that Tier 1 means relative to the rest of the city, we're seeing a lot more crashes. We're going to be looking at a lot of those safety issues. We also know this is a unique corridor as far as loading and commercial loading. This is also part of the Move DC freight corridors that we are working to improve. And certainly the pickup drop-off issues are very real, are very challenging. And so we're definitely going to be looking at, what our curb use is and how we can manage that better. All right, but back to buses. As far as our bus lines, we have the 90, the 92, and the 96. This is very much a high ridership corridor. We're looking at almost 16,000 daily riders. For all of those lines, we are, they travel several miles, more than obviously throughout the city. But within that short 0.7 tenths of a mile, we have the 34% of that area's boardings and alighting. So over a third of the ridership is coming for all of these lines is coming from U Street. And that nearly 16,000 daily riders would be the first or the second highest ridership corridor within the city. And who's riding, right? So it's really important for us to understand who's riding. Over 83% identifies people of color, and 55% of folks within the U Street corridor identify as low income. And this is numbers that we got from WMATA's, their public participation plan. And the issues that we're trying to address are kind of, again, the bus operations. And from WMATA's own numbers, as far as on-time performance, our standard is 79%. They have graded themselves a D and an E respectively for those routes because they're not hitting those on-time performance goals. And then bus speeds throughout this entire corridor that we've put together, we're seeing the buses moving about 6.7 miles per hour. So not very quickly. That number is combined with U Street and Florida and 8th Street as far as a larger transit corridor that we have put together. And with those corridors combined, this ranked as the highest ranked corridor as far as need through our own DDOT analysis that included equity, transit performance, land use, and a couple of other factors. Right. So to address those issues as far as on-time performance, as far as speed and reliability, we're going to be doing a study that examines the existing conditions. We're going to be doing a traffic analysis. What are the ways that we can manage our curb operations? What are the bus operations doing as far as our routes? We have a bus network redesign coming online this next year. How does ridership? What are the most used places people are getting on and off? And again, what are the kind of other issues that we can address as far as safety to make it comfortable for everyone? And what are the right solutions for those challenges. Again, we'll just be exploring the different kind of right-of-way needs. You know, this is just a snapshot of the typical roadway section as far as two travel section with a parking lane. We'll be exploring, you know, the traffic volumes as a whole. And interestingly, you know, these bus routes are basically back to pre-pandemic levels. And as I said, just high ridership corridors. This is a heat map that we use to look at where crashes have occurred for a period of time. And where you can see the bright red images is where we're seeing a lot more crashes relative to its surrounding area. So I think we all know that this is a high crash corridor. This is something that we're looking to address with the Vision Zero team. We're definitely coordinating internally with all of the relative departments to their areas of expertise like safety. And so we're going to continue to be working with them, knowing that this corridor has a lot of unique needs. It has a lot of activity at night. We're seeing a lot of late night congestion. We're seeing a lot of spillover as far as people walking into the streets, having fun in the streets. So we're going to be looking at how are the things that we can address this through design and through kind of this different types of safety improvements. Here is the routes of our 90s and 90 buses through the corridor. Where they overlap, we're looking at about 6-minute headways. Our 96 runs about every 20 minutes. Our 90 and 92 buses have pretty good headways combined at less than 10 minutes at times. And again, just you can see that 6.7 miles per hour. The other thing to note here is we kind of talk about free flow. So if we didn't have congestion, that would be how our buses would operate. However, we're seeing a lot of those issues and challenges as far as bus operations. And so we're only hitting, you know, we're barely hitting our potential as far as what that would be without congestion. So obviously a lot of delay when looking at these routes. So what can we do to solve this? So that's why we have this bus priority toolbox. And we're going to be exploring all of these potential treatments. So these are, again, we're going to be looking at a lot of these things, bus lanes, whether they're curbside or offset, recognizing just the challenges of pickup and drop off and loading through this area. I think those curbside lanes would be a challenge, but we're going to explore and analyze, you know, all of these different options, the bus stop spacing and making sure that those are lined up so that we have safe access to and from bus stops, but also making sure that we don't have bus stops too close together so that, you know, again, we're maximizing opportunity for the bus to be able to move, but also making sure that we're picking up the most amount of people. We have high capacity bus stops there, 14th, 16th Vermont. So you can kind of see where people are getting on and off. Other options are transit signal priority, as well as bulb outs and curb extensions. TSP, I had to bring in the art director here to support this just because it's a difficult thing to visualize. But buses and the signals have these sensors on them for transit signal priority that allow the signal to stay green for longer to allow that bus to get through an intersection. So if you're ever driving next to a bus and you see that that light is just green for a little bit longer, that bus is talking to this signal and is allowing you to get through that intersection a little bit faster. So it's something that you don't often see. And so we had to get in the lovely artwork. So just wanted to give a shout out to Jamie there. Curb extensions, you guys already see this. This is actually a huge safety benefit, one for people at intersections because it limits the crossing distance that you have to walk across the intersection. It also allows the bus to pull in seamlessly. It doesn't have to pull in or out. It just drives straight. And so you have less opportunities for incidents of crashes. So safety all across there, great treatments. And we have this here at 14th Street. And we'll also be looking into detail for curbside management. Pickup drop off is going to be huge here. And again, those other pedestrian improvements. again, whether it's curb bump outs, high visibility crosswalks, we're going to be coordinating with our Vision Zero team to make sure we have the right treatments for the right spaces. And here's our timeline. So we are just kicking this off. We're at the ground floor here. We are looking forward to hearing from you about what the needs are for this corridor. So we are just starting off and we are beginning our initial planning. We'll then start to develop the concepts as far as what those treatments are to address these different types of issues. And then we'll come back to you once we have some of those concepts finalized and what we're thinking through. And then at the end of the year, we'll have a final concept to present and then advance as we take that design forward. So 2024, we'll be looking to move that from kind of preliminary design into final design, and then in 2025 into construction. Right. There's a lot of ways to get a hold of us if you have questions. So we are part of the bus priority team. We have our webpage, but I would say the most important thing for you for this project is to go to the project webpage that you see here at the bottom. We also have a survey here. As we wrap up this meeting, we will also post this in the chat. Please go through this survey. I did just want to let folks know how the survey is populated at this point. Is that you see these first two questions. The first question is not a question. It's just like, hey, you were here tonight on March 23rd. And then it says, was this meeting held at a convenient time? So say yes or no. You can say whatever you like. So that is up to you. Answer honestly, but it's not populating the rest of those questions until you actually click on that answer. So then you will have several more questions. Make sure that you answer each one. At the very end, there is a question for comments. And so once you get to that question, you can comment or not, but then you will have completed the survey. We ask that everyone who joined us here today fills this out. We are required to provide this for all of our public meetings. And so we just want to know who's attending and again, how we can better serve you. So thank you all so much. I am going to share my contact information, and then Sharnita, I'm going to work with you to get this going because we want the majority of this meeting to be getting feedback from folks. So we can start addressing folks in the queue as far as who has their hands up and who doesn't. I'll just be sure to make sure we have, again, you will contact us directly with that information from the page, but I will, once I figure out once I figure out this whole chat thing, then I'll drop my email in there, or if one of my colleagues could do that, I'd appreciate it. All right. See how I can stop sharing. Okay. I think I did see it.
Do you see the chat bubble that's at the very bottom on to your right?
There it is. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Melanie. Appreciate that. Okay.
So far, I'm seeing 3 hands up. If we can go ahead and Shania, do we need to promote them?
I would like, before we get started, I think let me just make sure that we have our ANC chairs here.
We've got
you guys would like to say a couple words. I see Meg
with their hands up.
Okay, great. Okay. I guess I will start there. Let's start with on my screen. I see Santiago is here. Um, unless other folks want to jump in, I think Santiago, I see you. And it was nice to run into you on U Street when we were flyering, doing some business at the bank. Great to see you in person. Obviously, an important corridor for you. And let's see if I can get you unmuted here. Do I have that ability, or can you help me out here, Sharnita? There we
Looks like
go.
he's unmuted.
Yes.
Go ahead, Santiago.
Hi, Matthew. It was also great to run into you as well. I just wanted to, I went over some of this at our transportation committee meeting, but I want to say really happy the project is, getting kicked off, and a lot of members of the community are excited for it. I wanted to add some context for some other members of the community who are listening. When DDOT did its last average traffic count of road users on U Street, it was around 18,000 daily drivers. And I think when you're kind of looking at the numbers of that compared to like up to 16,000 bus riders, that's almost half of the users being on bus, as well as versus cars, which, what has dedicated space versus what doesn't. I just think it's an important piece of context. And I think I've talked with you about this before, but I think I'd really like to encourage DDOT to explore all the funding options it has to implement, more fixed and dedicated design on U Street, especially because DC's getting over $1 billion in formula highway funding. That money can be redirected, according to the U.S. Department of Transportation, to build transit and safe streets projects. And I think this is a great example of a high entry network, a high density transit corridor that desperately needs that kind of investment. But it's a bit of a bigger ask, but I also really encourage DDOT to look at fixed enforcement cameras, especially given the amount of traffic we get. I did some research in the last month of December when data was available. DPW only issued 37 tickets for bus lane violations. There's a lot more bus lanes than that. They gave out over 250 for rush hour violation parkings on Constitution Avenue itself versus 37 for all the bus lanes in the district. It's kind of a bit of showing where we need a little bit of equity for the bus riders in DC. I think the last comment I'll leave is, encouraging us to learn the mistakes of other projects. I think 16th Street is a good example where we don't have some of that fixed enforcement and we only have peak hour bus lanes, but people ride the bus every single hour of the day that the bus is operating. And we kind of need a little bit more bus service. But that's my several cents. But I'm very excited to work with everyone on this project. Thank you so much for having this town hall.
Thank you, sir. We'll definitely be looking at that enforcement as well. And of course, funding is always an important piece of the work that we do because we need to be able to pay for it. I do see Jeff Ruckauer here and another transportation committee representative. Can we get Jeff unmuted? And then we'll go through, I see David, Paul, and a U Street Northwest resident. I'm gonna need more than that, but I look forward to all of your comments. But can we get Jeff going here first? Thank you. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks a lot for finally getting this thing kicked off, and I'm really excited about it. I also want to, in addition to what Santiago said, I also need to echo the importance of enforcement, and that's something that the design, I think, should also be self-enforcing, which is something that's lacking on 16th Street. Ways of making it difficult for cars to get into the bus lanes or fouling the bus lanes. Also, one of the things that's a major issue there is the number of Ubers that are clogging the streets for nightlife. And I think part of it too, we want to look at perhaps geofencing that would prevent, that would force the ride shares to use designated PUDO spots. Also, one of the other things too that kind of dovetails on this is also something that's a separate issue is getting the circulator extension up there. And I know that they're looking at cutting half of it, but I'm still optimistic in championing that because I think that one seat ride option would get a lot of cars off the street simply because it's available. And when we looked at the demographics earlier in the presentation, it becomes an equity issue too of providing this. It provides greater flexibility, lower cost for residents, and also for those arguments about things that, okay, this is being done that's benefiting non-residents. I would say that that everybody who's coming to the district is putting money into the district, and that this it might be tourists that have a lot of it, or suburbanites on the evenings, but it's something that is definitely going to benefit everyone. So the other, I guess, one last thing would be in terms of bike lane accessibility. If there's some way that we can accommodate that, and I'm not sure how this squares against the streetscape that's supposed to happen there. So I don't know if you guys are working in tandem with the streetscape people, or hopefully whatever you guys come up with won't be uprooted in a few years by somebody else. So that's it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. No, and that's a great point. So one, yeah, we are working in tandem. There are different projects, but they're both through DDOT, and we are trying to kind of, which we will be kind of coming first as far as our timeline, but we want to make sure that as they extend their streetscape, that we have the same priorities, and then we're very much aligned with how the corridor looks. So it's kind of seamless through the corridor, even though they're on those different timelines. So kind of adding on in kind of the future years. I had David next. And Jeff, if you could unraise your hand, that would be great. And that would help keep me organized. I had David, Paul, and then we'll keep going from there. Go ahead, David.
2F01, which has the 14th to 15th section of U Street on the south side. My question, what I've observed, you had that slide on the users, the clientele of your service. And my observation is that U Street line is really critical for a lot of people challenged with disability, both mental and physical. And I think more than, and I'm not sure, but it's my observation that that line is serving more of that kind of clientele than other lines. And I'm wondering if you've given any attention to how that might be affecting loading, unloading, what your bus drivers needs in terms of that, providing, a service which can really be safe.
No, I think it's, yeah, absolutely. No,
I would urge you to look into who is using, much more in depth into who is using that line and what might be needed for that population.
No, that's a great point. Thank you, David. Okay, I had Paul next in the queue. We could get Paul Cadario unmuted.
I'm Paul
Go ahead,
Cadario.
Paul.
I'm a member of the ANC2B Mobility Committee, or whatever our chair Jeff, who's just spoken, decides it should be renamed. And I live in North DuPont on the 1500 block of T. I think this is a great project. Anything we can do to encourage transit usage and bus ridership is a great thing. Part of that, of course, relates to passengers' feeling of safety. And certainly, I feel safer on the 90 buses going west from 16th and U than I do on the ones going east. And although that's not primarily DDOT's responsibility, certainly there would be greater transit usage if it was a lot safer if you felt a lot safer getting on a bus. So I just want to make that point, because I think it's something that's undiscussable in this city, but I think it's something that needs to be mentioned. On the question of bus lanes, I hope that DDOT is going to look very carefully at the experience of the 16th Street bus lanes, which are great, except that the extent of non-compliance by people going north on 16th Street in the evening is shocking and dangerous. because people just ignore the fact they're not supposed to be in the bus lane. And if there is a bus going through, there are generally 2 or 3 cars that follow it. I think the police have to do a week of really rigorous enforcement and ticketing, and then a month later do it again to train some of our neighbors that they cannot speed, they cannot go that quickly on 16th Street in the bus lanes. It's just it's unsafe and it defeats the whole purpose. There is another issue. The corner of 16th and T is a problem already because in Russia, well, first there's flagrant violation of the truck restrictions because the trucks all funnel off New Hampshire Avenue. They're supposed to turn north. They don't. They come along T Street, notwithstanding the signs. After DDOT took away the automated traffic enforcement camera about 3 years ago, it's just gotten worse with deliveries over onto 14th Street. In addition, at rush hour, when people cannot make a left turn off T Street up 16th Street because the traffic lane is blocked and actually into the intersection of 16th and T, they just zoom along the 1500 block of T. I don't know whether we need speed bumps or we need bump outs, or the whole area needs another look by DDOT about how do you keep the residential streets residential, and how do you get the trucks and the through traffic onto the arterial roads where they belong. And just my last point, I was at the meeting about the U Street streetscape, which is a great idea, but that meeting concluded there's really not enough space for all the things you want to put on U Street. We want wider sidewalks. We like bike lanes. You can't take away several blocks of parking. You want a bus lane. You want through traffic. You want unloading. This is going to be very challenging to do. And when the construction begins at the redevelopment of the police and fire station, we will probably have other traffic issues in that part of the streetscape. So I would hope that in addition to coordinating with the streetscape team at DDOT, you'll also look at the somewhat feral behavior by drivers and by trucks and occasionally by buses in the corridor and the streets that go through it, particularly 14th and 16th Street, where there are already issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. That was great. Great points. Appreciate those comments. And again, the things I was going to say, it's not just about you tonight. See, we're talking about a lot of different issues here. But U Street is obviously the focus, but there are obviously a lot of tangential issues that expand across not only this corridor, but into other neighborhoods. And this is part of a larger network that we're looking at as far as impacting the rest of the district. And these things are all interrelated. And as you said, we can't do everything. We have to make some decisions, right? You know, we can't fit everything within to the street. We have a lot of constraints, but we're going to do what we can to achieve those goals that we talked about at the beginning. And those are very real implications as far as safety and feeling of comfort. And so that's what we're trying to address. I had next was Matt Johnson. Hey, Matt. You are unmuted.
Can you hear me?
There? I can. There you are.
Thank you. Matt Johnson, Matt Johnson, Commissioner for 2B06 in the southwest corner of DuPont. So a little bit far from U Street, but transit, good transit access affects all of us. And so I just wanted to voice my support for whatever DDOT can do to improve transit speed and reliability in the U Street corridor and in the other corridors that are being considered in the future. I felt
that was
like
a good segue then. That was a good segue. It's not just about you. All right.
I think that a lot of what Commissioner Ruckauer said earlier were things that I wanted to mention, which is that I think one of the biggest problems we have in the U Street corridor are Ubers and Lyfts and other ride shares, you know, being sort of behaving poorly, but just people, you know, trying to call Ubers and Lyfts directly to U Street creates huge problems in that area and also on some of the adjacent streets, and that causes a lot of problems for transit. And I'm wondering, I guess you guys haven't started working on any of the alternatives yet, but I think one thing that we could consider is just anything we could do to reduce through traffic on U Street would benefit the corridor greatly. And I think there are some good examples elsewhere where that's been done, including King Street in Toronto and 14th Street in New York City, where they have essentially banned through traffic. So you can drive on King Street in Toronto and you can drive on 14th Street in New York, but you can only drive maximum of 1 or 2 blocks depending on the context, and then you have to turn off. And what that does is it encourages people to just find other routes to drive on. I do think that Commissioner Ruckauer's suggestion of some kind of geofence to prevent Ubers and Lyfts from being called directly to U Street could be workable potentially. I know San Francisco has a similar setup for Market Street to avoid, because Market Street is a critical transit corridor in San Francisco, and having it clogged up with Ubers and Lyfts is not helpful. I think another thing, I don't know if this is something that DDOT can do through regulation, but I think it would be really helpful if there was a legal requirement for Uber and Lyft and the other similar apps to provide transit information when you try and use their service. I remember an instance, this is before the pandemic, but I was at a house party up in the north side of Columbia Heights, just off 16th Street, and we were all going to go to a bar down on U Street, and everyone was like, let's call like 3 Ubers for everyone. And I was like, guys, there's a bus that runs like every 6 minutes, like less than a block from here. And I pulled out my phone and I was like, and it's coming in, 4 minutes. We can make that bus. Why are we all, spending all this money for a Lyft when we can literally go spend $2 each and ride a bus, and it's going to get us there probably faster because we'd have to wait for the Lyft, whereas the bus is coming right now. And, I convinced everyone to take the bus, but I think it should be, if you're making an Uber trip that is transitable, right, that you could take on transit, Uber should tell you, hey, did you know you can pay $2 and ride the bus and be there just as fast as the Uber would get you there? I think that would be really helpful in trying to encourage people to try transit. But we really need to get as many cars as possible off of city streets, not just U Street. But we are in a climate emergency. There was a recent report that basically in less than 10 years we might pass the point of no return. And frankly, and I know that the people in this room are probably not responsible for this, but frankly, the fact that the mayor's budget proposes cutting transit service is just wrong-headed, and I can't believe we're talking about building bus lanes while the mayor is basically saying we should reduce transit service in the city. That's the wrong move. We should be increasing transit service, and we should be really encouraging people not to drive their private cars or their single-occupant cars into the city, because we just can't accommodate that level. It's not good for the climate. It's not good for Vision Zero, for pedestrian and bicyclist safety, and of course, it harms transit users. So I think I'm probably preaching to the choir with the people in this room, but I just wanted to voice my support for this. And I also think that we should consider extending this project's scope over to 18th Street instead of ending it at 16th Street, because the 90s buses do, I believe, all go up 18th Street to Adams Morgan, and I don't know why the bus lanes are stopping at 16th Street when there's still 2 blocks of U Street that could use transit priority. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. And again, we're going to be working in tandem with that IPMA streetscape, and hopefully we have that kind of a seamless corridor that matches kind of what our intentions are. But again, one step at a time. I had a U Street Northwest resident, and then Aurelia, and then Evan. That is the order that I saw them go up. If we could mute David as well as anybody else, and then I'm going to ask the U Street Northwest resident to be unmuted. Would you like to identify yourself? Tell us who you are, or did you have a comment? And I think that person has left, or they have changed their name there they are. I see you now. Hello, U Street Northwest resident. Are you there? Are you on the line?
They were unmuted for a moment. Looks like they've been re-muted. Still on though.
Okay, sorry about that. Network dropped
No
on my
problem.
end.
No worries.
problem.
They're still there.
I do see them at the end there.
Hello.
So let's try it again. Hello.
Success.
Who are we talking to?
Hi, yeah, my name's Deborah. I live on the 16th.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi, I live on the 1600 block of U Street Northwest, and I have been living in the district for quite a long time, car free. So I have a lot of experience with buses and metro. And so I'm not going to take too much time, but I have a few questions based on what you said at the beginning. Number one is the curb versus the offset. So
Right.
is that lane to the right of the offset a bike lane? Or what is that
No,
lane
ma'am.
for? Or is that cars?
That's either a parking lane or a travel lane. So in this instance, what we would be looking at is maintaining that parking lane, and then having the bus lane offset. So rather than right against the curb, where we see a lot of kind of typical treatments, we would move that out so people could still pull in and park and use that curb space, but then that would be then offset away from the curb, and then that would be our vehicular lane. Or, I'm sorry, our
So,
bus lane.
so if a bus rider wants to board a bus that's in an offset lane, do they have to traverse the parking lane to get to the bus? How do they get to the bus?
That is a great question. So we also showed some of those curb bump outs. That would kind of be another
Oh,
treatment we could match with that. So you're
okay.
moving the curb out to meet the bus rather than you having to walk out. And so we need to make sure that we can still get to the curb. So we also would then, if we didn't have that, curb bump out, then we would have the bus pull into the curb at the bus stop. So then you would kind of have a mix of either right turns, or we could, do some queue jumps action, which we actually have within that corridor. So they would still get into that curb space. We have to load to the curb just for accessibility and ease of access and operations, but we have to be able to do that. So I think a successful treatment is bringing the curb out to the bus, and we see that on 14th Street. But then there are, again, a variety of ways that we can address that. But when you kind of when you start matching those tools together, then you end up with a lot more safety improvements, as well as, again, just making it easier for you to get on the bus.
Yeah, one comment I would have about the that curb at 14th and
Mhm.
U. When I ride the southbound bus, and I get off at 14th and U, and there's that island there, it's a little treacherous. It's very narrow, and there are people queued there waiting to get on the bus. And there's very little clearance to get past them. And then once you get around them, you have to look to your right because there's a bike lane. And now we have Idaho stops, I think. So bikes are allowed to go through the intersection and turn right. So you have to be really aware of a bike coming. So I find
Gotcha.
I'm not saying I'm against that. I just am telling you my life experience
Yeah.
of riding that bus and getting to the island. It's always a little bit treacherous. So, and then
And
like
you're
Paul said
and
earlier,
you're talking about the bus island on 14th Street rather than the kind of curb extension on U Street at 14th. So
right?
so I just wanted to,
It
right. I just wanted to clarify that's on
would
14th
be the
Street.
northwest. Yeah, actually, it's the northwest corner of 14th Street,
Right.
right in front of the Reef Center. That one, yeah.
Yep.
So I would say that if you do that, because I think there's a shelter there,
So that would be
and
different.
then
There
people
is, yeah.
queue up.
And that would be a
Yeah.
different type of treatment, just to clarify. So what we would be doing,
Okay.
just what we talked about, um, as far as that offset lane would be next to the parking. But as you got to the intersection, that parking would go away, and we would actually move the curb out when you get to the crosswalk at that intersection. So you would have
hmm
a much wider platform and loading and unloading area.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to, you guys probably know this, but just no one's mentioned it yet. They do plan to put a hotel into the Reeves Center.
Yes.
And that is, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know where the loading and unloading is going to be for that, but I just wanted to raise that flag.
Thank you.
And
We
then,
are aware, but you're right. We don't know what it looks like either. So we're still trying to figure that out. But we have some time to
okay,
do that. And
okay.
I have a feeling with the way these kind of developments go, we may beat them to the punch. So we'll see what their plans are, or if they have plans yet.
Yeah, I want to really quickly, just three more really quick things. I want to agree with Matt, the previous speaker, about I hope that we don't get the circulator routes canceled. I find that the circulator is essential to fill in for bus bunching delays. I take the circulator a lot, especially from Columbia Heights down 14th to 14th and U. And it doesn't have any stops between Irving and U Street. It's almost like an express bus. And so I just want to just put my 2 cents worth in to say that I hope they don't cut the circulator. And I would actually like to see a circulator start at 14th or maybe even farther east and come all the way down U to 18th Street and either turn right, like someone was suggesting, up through Adams Morgan, or turn left and go down to DuPont Circle. So I'm all for increasing the circulator. Two more quick things. Have you guys thought about a streetcar at all for U Street? Is that totally off the table?
So that's a wrong team, Deborah. I'm just the bus guy. So
All right,
it's not
never
something
mind.
on our radar, but
Okay, and
we're
then
hoping we can we're hoping we can still make the kind of transit improvements that are needed for this area.
okay.
And thank
And
you.
the
Hear you
last
loud and clear. More circulator, not less. Okay.
Yeah, more circulator. And the last thing is, and this is probably the wrong team, but is anybody talking about creating a pedestrian zone anywhere on U Street? And I say that because I keep hearing that, a lot of the businesses have not recovered from the pandemic. And I think if there are pedestrian zones and people can walk freely and go from place to place, it might help, I don't know, stimulate economic, business, because I do see a lot of people walking, from place to place, especially on the weekends. So I just wanted to ask if you have heard anything at all about creating any kind of pedestrian zone.
I mean, that's an interesting point, and I think Matt was kind of alluding to that in some of his comments as well, as far as, what would it look like if we kind of changed the operations, whether it's, allowing cars or not allowing cars, is this like a permanent treatment? Is it a temporary treatment? Is there something we can do on the weekends? Those types of things. And I think those are all good ideas, right? And so we certainly are open to that, and we're looking at those types of opportunities. But again, we're still exploring that. And again, what does that look like as we kind of move forward? And I think a lot of those things make sense as far as safety, as far as comfort, and just the unique needs of U Street, right? So excellent point. We definitely will kind of add that into our list as far as things that we want to take a closer look at. And thank you so much for your comments, Deborah. Appreciate your time. I appreciate everyone's time. We're here. It's almost 7 o'clock. We have the space until 7:30. I'm glad everyone's making themselves feel at home, because you probably are. I have Aurelia next. Am I saying that right? Good evening. We're going to get you unmuted here in just a second. Still trying. I don't see it turning green yet. And then after Aurelia, I see Evan. There we go. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I work on the 14th Street and take, the bus up and down 14th Street quite often. Sometimes they're 14th and U. Actually, quite often they're 14th and U. So
Hey.
I kind of had a concern that the previous caller did about the bus islands.
Yeah.
Up and down 14th Street, and was kind of wanted to make a suggestion on what not to do.
Okay.
Because the bus islands, I'm not sure whose idea it was to put the barrier on the bus islands, which makes it actually less safe. I think that's what the previous caller was talking about. The barriers behind the bus stop, all the way down, because it makes it. It seems to assume that the bicyclists are in danger from the bus riders. If you think about it, and and they're not in danger.
I hear what you're saying.
They're not in danger from the bus riders. They're in danger from the traffic. But yet, if you're the only way to safely aboard a bus at a bus stop is if you're standing right at the bus stop when the bus is pulling up. If you see the bus and you're not at the bus stop and you're kind of running to get to the bus stop, you almost have to run into traffic to get to the stop because you have a bar and you can't just go from the sidewalk and kind of run over to the bus stop. If you know what I'm saying?
I do absolutely understand.
Yeah.
So you were trying to catch that bus. That is what is important. I hear you. So we're also navigating a lot of different things within this situation.
Safely.
Yes, absolutely.
And timely.
Right. And so
if you make it more difficult and
Yes.
dangerous for pedestrians to
Right.
catch the bus, fewer people.
Right.
But it's less useful
and
for
so
people.
yeah. No, it's a great point. And what we're trying to navigate there is having kind of one area where people can get off and access that. And so you're trying to catch that bus.
But that's not how people actually catch the bus. You're trying to
Right.
control how people catch the
Right.
bus, and that actually ironically makes it more dangerous to catch a bus
Yeah,
and more
understood.
difficult
And
to actually
well,
catch the bus.
that's one aspect of it, right? And the other aspect is also people that are on the platform. And so we have we understand that railing, is there to actually there's a lot of accessibility issues that we have with these islands, right? And so you have this platform, you have the people that are biking by. This is something that we work with the ADA community quite a bit about, and making sure that no one's accidentally falling backwards or falling into someone, say, biking past. And so that's
So
another
they
thing
requested.
that we're looking.
They requested the barrier that was specifically requested.
It's part of our design, and this is something that we have worked through with them in that community.
That specifically was, because I can see the other aspects of it being
Right.
pretty safe. Where it is, the fact that it is an island, the shelter,
Yeah.
all of that is pretty cool. The only thing I have a problem with is the barrier. That's why I
Okay.
keep asking, was that specifically requested by the people?
So
Because
I wasn't part of that particular project, but it's something that I have worked on in the past, and it has been very vocal as far as being implemented within that. And I totally understand how it feels within that space. It feels a little bit more narrow without that being open.
I'm not talking about
but
the
it also-
space feeling. I'm not talking about the space actually feeling narrow. I mean, physically, it is physically a barrier to reaching the bus
Yeah.
stop, and it's a barrier
That's right.
even for people who are actually. I mean, actually, for people in wheelchairs, they can actually only reach it even one side. They can't even reach it from two sides. You understand? Like, if I'm thinking
Yes,
of a
ma'am.
stop that's at T Street, they can enter T Street exactly at T Street. No other place. They can't. I don't know. I don't know. It's
and again, it's an
like-
interesting
yeah.
treatment. Yeah, no, it's an interesting treatment, and it's not unique to the city.
Not unique to the
It's,
city, but that doesn't mean that it's a good one. We don't have to come.
Okay,
to
well,
other people's-
I appreciate your
bad
comment, but I just want you to know we're thinking about a lot of different factors.
I'm just saying,
and
as
weighing
someone
that,
who actually uses it, because this is the second thing that you're getting in a row from a person who actually uses the system on a regular basis, making a complaint about something that the previous caller made. Because I don't think she used the word barrier, and she was talking, but I'm thinking the same. She may have had a problem with the same concept. And people can say, well, this was come up in but in real life,
Yes, ma'am.
just that's all I'm saying. Have a wonderful evening.
I really appreciate your comments.
Thank you, ma'am.
And appreciate you riding. All right. Thank you very much. I have Evan next. And then that's all the hands that I see that are raised. If you have other, I see some other questions or just some other comments in the chat. So thank you guys. Everything's being documented. This is all being recorded. I think we'll go to Evan. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm Evan. I live in ANC 2D, like Delta, just west of U Street. And I totally agree with people who have said that it would be great to continue this towards 18th Street and the Adams Morgan area. And I know you mentioned a few times there's a streetscape project to the west, but I'm not familiar with that. So I was wondering if you could mention what that is. And then second, just to add another complication of things that people are trying to balance on the street, I was wondering if DDOT sort of expects these to be compatible with the streeteries that have been installed on the street in the last like couple of years, because those are really great to be able to sit outside in nice weather and things. And I was just wondering if you see those remaining in place.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on kind of the treatment as far as the streeteries, but I think a lot of those streeteries, by the time we get to construction, may not be in existence. So there's, as far as like the permitting process and kind of, having that as a pandemic response. So I think the future of those streeteries is unknown. But I think if, we were talking about those kind of offset bus lanes, then it would be compatible. But something to look at. And so, yeah, appreciate the comment, and we'll definitely be taking a deeper dive into that. And then extending to 18th Street, you mentioned the IPM. I'm sorry. For us, it's a DDOT. It is a DDOT project. It is within our department, and so it is a streetscape, kind of looking at pedestrian improvements, safety improvements, intersection types of treatments. And so that would be kind of the extent. And so we would be working with them as far as what our project entails, and then kind of hopefully integrating similar elements into their project. And so that's what I have at this point. But I think as we kind of develop these concepts further, we'll know more about what all their scope of work is. Okay, and then I have another question here as far as bus lanes and bike lanes. So typically our bus lanes are accessible for bikes. And so this would not be a separated, again, we're not looking at that specifically for bike infrastructure through this, but our bus lanes would also be accessible by bike. Thank you, Carly. And then I see her, but I got Evan. Carly, can you be patient and we can talk about that bike element here just because I saw Douglas here first. And then I will get to you. So let's do Douglas Stallworth. And then Carly, will get to you if you are still with us. Okay, you are. Go ahead, Douglas. Let's get you off mute. And thank you, Evan. Appreciate those comments. Okay, if we could get Douglas unmuted. Okay, Douglas.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank you for this project, because I'll give you a little historical perspective. I worked for DDOT for 30 years, and after that, Metro for 9 years, all that time on the Metro program. And my 9 years at Metro, I was the project manager for all of the quarters and the bus quarters in the city. And we did the priority quarter studies, 9 studies, including the U Street Garfield line study, which we completed in 2011. And that study recommended better bus service, unlimited stop bus service. And I'll mention, I'm gonna get back to that, but I'll talk about the bus lanes first. They did.
Well, thank you for your
recommend-
service. I have looked at that plan. I appreciate the work, the good work.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and it did recommend bus service from 9th on U Street, from 9th Street over to 18th Street, and on Florida Avenue from New York Avenue to 8th Street Northeast. And I think that that was in addition to signal priorities, things like what's at 16th Street now, the priority on the north-south on that. And I just wanted to say that we were working with the Coalition for Smart Growth, and Cheryl Court wanted me to say she supports. She couldn't be here. She couldn't be at the meeting. She wanted me to also say that they support the bus lanes. And we had, at the time, we had meetings with ANC, I think 2B, and they supported the bus lanes and the bus service, the limited stop service. That was an important key to it. And many individuals, when we had our study and had our meetings, they wanted to go over to DuPont Circle. And that's what we had this limited stop route that we recommended that would run from Anacostia all the way across Florida, 8th Street, North Capitol Hill, across Florida Avenue and U Street, and go over to DuPont Circle, because at our community meetings, a lot of people on U Street said they wanted to go directly from U Street over to DuPont Circle and not have to go south down 14th or 16th to catch the G2 to go over to DuPont Circle. So that was one of the recommendations. But I think the lanes are key to making it all work. And I personally, since I've been retired, I have been going to public hearings, metro public hearings at down at City Council, asking for the bus lanes, asking for this better but limited stop Route 99 bus service. Been doing it for 12 years now.
Yeah.
We've been working a long time on that. So I just want to put in a plug for it, and hopefully the city can fund it. I've talked to the mayor at her budget meeting about funding that, the bus service, because people have been asking for that. But I'll leave it at that. But thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the comments and the support. I had Carly. Carly, I saw your comment. Did you want to speak to that? And get her unmuted. May have lost her, actually.
Yeah, I don't see her on anymore.
Well, we'll have to answer that the next time.
Mhm.
I hope that the answer was satisfactory. All right, I don't see any other hands here. And I'm happy to take some additional questions in the chat, or if there are any other hands that pop up, we can take that. Or we can just end this a little bit early. We had the space reserved here till 7:30, but it doesn't mean if we've exhausted all the questions and comments, then I'll let you guys go get some dinner. So I just wanted to, again, thank everyone for being here, for participating. I also just wanted to, again, give a shout out to the ANC chairs and their transportation committees for spreading the word. We had some pretty good attendance here this afternoon. Thank you all for the work that you do within your communities and for being here with us tonight. So we're excited to advance this project with you and have a wonderful evening. I'm going to ask Melanie if you could please drop that link to the Title VI survey, as well as the U Street project webpage one more time for folks. And you guys have our email and our contact information. We will be sharing the presentation online, as well as we'll have the presentation so you can get a hold of us at any time. So thank you guys and have a wonderful evening. And we'll get that.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a nice evening.